This is Hustle Rip Rogers telling you the stories of the first time I worked the weekend for WWWF. Okay, this is early 1977. That's right, early 1977. And I just had my first match a couple weeks before at Oak Hill, West Virginia, WOAY studio in Beckley, West Virginia, where I met the infamous, well, the Batten twins were there wrestling each other under the hoods, but I didn't know they were the Batten twins, and I didn't know they were identical twins with double hoods wrestling each other. So anyway, I met the infamous BB Coleman. BB Coleman, who I immediately called Dad, as he was sitting over on the other side cutting up blades and putting them on his fingers. He was going to cut the shit out of somebody. What the hell? And he'd come down from Akron down to Oak Hill, West Virginia, and wrestle every week. Well, me and my buddy Steve Cooper, Steve had been there the week before. And then anyway, he brought me. So I'm there watching all this shit. So Coleman says, "Hey, Mark," which is great because my real name was Mark and he was basically calling me a Mark. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to go work for WWWF, Vince McMahon." It was just Vince Sr. Then Vince Jr. was busy being, he was just the announcer then. So me and Hoss Tweed, Ed Kerner, guy I went to high school in Seymour, Indiana, class of 1972. He was a wrestler at Concordia Teachers College, and he had wrestled in for Seymour, played football with me. And so Ed was a good athlete. So he was going to, so it was me and Ed leaving Seymour, Indiana, and we're driving up to Akron, Ohio to pick up BB Coleman. So earlier he said we was going to take his Cadillac there. So me and Ed drive all the way up to where Coleman's at in Akron. And all of a sudden he says, "Hey, Mark, you're not going to believe this. I thought we'd take our plane, but they're expecting a storm and whatever, so we're not going to fly there. And my Cadillac's in the shop." So I said, "Hey," me being dumb and stupid, say, "I guess we'll take my Pinto." So Coleman and me and Ed were tired from driving because we wasn't used to driving all the way that far to start the trip. So Coleman got into big old super coffee. Of course, he was chain smoking his cigarettes and everything. So we take off and we start driving because we're going to go to the Philadelphia Arena. The Philadelphia Arena for day one. And this is with the WWWF. Day two is Allentown, Pennsylvania, which was a regular town. And in the third show, we had a spot show lined up, and that Coleman had lined. So you knew he was in trouble there. So Coleman starts driving, and he's driving my Pinto, and he's got it in. I think it was I don't know, it was a 4-speed, whatever it was. He was going, so he gets us there. So we're driving into our first show for the WWWF is going to be the Philadelphia Arena. Now, me, I'm half Mark anyway. So the first things he does, he drives down to the Lincoln Hotel and checks us in. So I'm looking at the hotel and shit. Then we get over to the arena, the Philadelphia Arena. Now, at the Philadelphia Arena, I got this picture. This picture right here. Whoops. Superstar Billy Graham. Superstar Billy Graham. And I was such a mark. I was such a fan. I was in hog heaven. I had all these guys autograph it. Now, listen to the people that's on this autograph. And this is 1977 when Superstar Billy Graham was the WWWF champion. Of course, I had Superstar Billy Graham there. And when Billy looked at me, he says, "Hey, cool, you work out." And I did work out. Of course, I didn't look like Superstar Billy Graham, but I was a young man. What the hell, right? So all these WWWF superstars autographed this for me. One was Classy Freddie Blassie. Freddie Blassie right here. He autographed this great picture. George the Animal Steel. That's right, George the Animal Steel. And I'm going to wrestle him in one of those spot shows. But we immediately bonded because I was a football coach. Ed Kerner was a football coach who was Hoss Tweed, and George the Animal Steel was a football coach. So that was awesome. Then also on here was Tora Tanaka, Mr. Fuji, who I wrestled there on the second night in Allentown. That's when I hurt my knee. And then the great Bob Backlund was on here. Bob, that's right, Bobby Backlund. the ex WWWF champion. Larry Zbyszko is here. The Baron, that's right, the Baron von Raschke. I watched as a kid for Dick the Bruiser, and I didn't know he was the big shooter, and he was really James Raschke out of the University of Nebraska. Gorilla Monsoon's on here. That's who I got my draw from, $150 draw each night. And Captain Lou Albano. Can you imagine that, being a guy gets all the wrestling magazines, being a guy that watches wrestling as much as they can, idolizes wrestling. All I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid was to be a wrestler. And here I am, Super Mark, coming in, got this picture, got all these guys to sign this the very first night when we're at the Philadelphia Arena. Wow. So anyway, I'll put this picture down now, but you can gaze into it. It's authentic, the real thing. Hey, I might auction this thing. It's worth, but then again, it's worth so much money. But I don't know. Anyway, now we're going to go to the Philadelphia Arena. So I'm working at the Philadelphia Arena. So I'm going to wrestle George the Animal Steel. So me and George were talking, and I told you earlier, since we were football coaches, he liked me right away. Says my buddy to come with me, Hoss Tweed, Ed Kerner. I can't remember if his boss or Hoss Tweed, because my other buddy Chuck Nobblet, they were the one half the famous Tweed gang, Hoss and Boss Tweed. But I can't remember if Chuck was Hoss or if he was boss, if Ed was Hoss or if he was boss or whatever. So anyway, we're at the Philadelphia Arena, and what a shithole is it. It was great. And everybody in Philadelphia, if you were a good guy, they booed you. They hated you. If he was a bad guy, everybody in Philadelphia is they was all just assholes. But I didn't know how the wrestling fans over there. So I had my match with George Animal Steel. So he does the thing where he gets he sprays the mist in my face, and good old Mark Shire, the white baby face with the gimmick afro, I got sprayed in the eyes, and he put me in his hammerlock, and I gave up. But before the match, I was watching the promos and shit. I'm looking around, and there's Vince McMahon and Andre the Giant. Now, this is Vince Jr. Now he's just the announcer. Here he is poking this microphone way up in the air, because what happens, Andre's standing there, but he's got Andre standing on a box. So instead of 7 foot tall, he's about 8 foot tall. And Vince McMahon's, he's holding that microphone way up there. I said, oh, that's how they do that. So I talked to Andre. He just went, whatever. And I was just in awe of everything, just living the dream. I'm going, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this shit. I get to see all these guys that I've seen in the magazines, all these guys that I see not on really TV, because this is before cable television. So they were just in at the time, WWWF was like a regional territory, like ICW, like Tampa, like Mid-South, like Portland, like Los Angeles, like San Francisco, like Calgary. They was just a small territory. And the big houses was like Pittsburgh. Of course, the Madison Square Garden sold out once a month and stuff, but they didn't have that many big towns, and they were just like us in every other territory, running high schools, running armories, whatever. But to me, to see this for the first time, I'm going, because all I'd really seen was Dick the Bruiser wrestling, the Sheiks wrestling, Nick Goulas wrestling, etc. And then to see this shit that I see in the goddamn magazines, to see these superstars, I'm going, wow. And yeah, they didn't have no camera phones within. I had the Polaroid. So I got a picture with Bruno. I got a picture with Pedro Morales. Of course, they're all gone in the flood I had, but at the time, it didn't get any better than that. That was the first night there at the Philadelphia Arena. Then afterwards, we went to the Lincoln Hotel. And when we went to the Lincoln Hotel, the boys were ribbing me because they knew I was greenhorn. So they took my jock strap, throwing stuff on the chandeliers. They just fucking with me because they knew I was a rookie. They knew I was a greenhorn, and they was shaking hands with me. I was just shaking hands like I was a mark. And they was shaking hands real loose. I'm thinking, God damn, what the fuck's the matter with them? They like girls or something, because they're shaking their hands like a pussy. I didn't know that was the kayfabe wrestling. And they was talking carny around me. I didn't know what the hell that was. And some of them was talking the Cockney slang too. So I said, God damn, how many different languages they got in this pro wrestling shit. So I had my match at the Philadelphia Arena. I told you with George Animal Steel, and I lose. And then we go to the Lincoln Hotel and we celebrate this and that. The next day we got to drive to Allentown. So there's me and Hoss Tweed and BB Billy Coleman who got us the gigs there. So we drive to Allentown. So now we drive to Allentown. I'm wrestling. Now listen to this. Mr. Fuji and Tora Tanaka, who were they were like the perennial heel tag team in the WWWF. So, and like on the first night, I got to meet Vince McMahon. I got to meet Gorilla Monsoon. I'm on Hog Heaven. I'm looking, oh man, these guys are so fucking big and shit, right? And then Superstar Gorilla Graham says, Jesus Christ, he looks like Mr. Universe to me. Bob Backlund, he took me to the gym and worked out when we went to town. Of course, Coleman was just smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. And I can't remember if Hoss was sleeping in or what, but I went to the gym with Bob Backlund. So no matter what, you can't take that away from me. And then I like when I got to meet Larry Zbyszko because he was a younger guy, just a little bit older than me, and he was a star. He was a star there already. So now we're in Allentown. So I'm wrestling Mr. Fuji and Tora Tanaka. So when I'm wrestling I was selling. All I did was get up, and I had a bad left knee from high school football that I never got fixed, and I tore the meniscus in my left knee. So damn. So I had to tape that thing all up, and I had one more show to work. So anyway, Tanaka and Fuji, they beat the shit out of me, and once again I lost, but I got my money. I didn't give a shit because I was meeting all the superstars that I'd watched seen in the magazines, in the WWWF. Andre the Giant's right there, and I saw him with the box. Vince McMahon hold the thing up, and I'm getting a glimpse, learning about all these different languages they have in pro wrestling, how to shake hands. Wow. And I think it was the greatest weekend of my life, but we're just touching a little bit of it, of what happened and what went on. So I got the hurt knee now. So after the hurt knee now, on the way back, BB Coleman he's got us a spot show lined up. Yeah, a spot show. So I'm going to be BB Coleman Jr. and I'm going to be a heel manager. Now I'd never been a heel manager in my life, so well hell, I'll just do like they do on TV and start yelling at the fans. Well, I had the gimmick knee all taped up, so I could hardly walk. And I was I think I was BB Coleman's manager and I was BB Coleman Jr. I got the fans so wild up, like they were coming trying to get me, and they had to lock me in the dressing room, and we had to wait for the National Guard. It was it was somebody in uniforms. I don't know if it was security, if it was cops, the National Guard, whatever, to get me out of there because there were so many people there wanting to kick my ass because they had all these unwritten rules of stuff you wasn't supposed to do in wrestling. Hell, nobody told them to me. I wasn't trained. How in the hell would I know? My experience was working Oak Hill, West Virginia, and now I'm there working the big time. So what the hell do I know? So I guess I sort of stretched a little bit of rules, so they had to get me out of there. The greatest weekend of my life up to then, and it all happens because I was a fan. I loved professional wrestling. This was something that tickled my innards, and at the time, this was the greatest weekend of my life. It couldn't get any better than that. So this is just another day in the life another day of being a pro wrestler, getting my boot, being a rookie, being a greenhorn, not knowing shit. Couldn't wait to suck up the knowledge from somebody else the next weekend because I had 2 shows the next weekend. So for now, this is Hustle Rip Rogers telling you the stories of the first time I worked the weekend for WWWF, seeing all the superstars. I was like a kid in the candy store. And one thing for sure is it don't get any better than that.